rock and roll rabbi has entered the studio.
Well, I have to tell you, I am not soft-spoken. Sorry. Some want a second reformation. I say that we have reformed too much. That is why no one agrees. We Jews, however, are different. My foot is on the neck of the new interpretations found in the Hebrew Roots movement, and I am putting pressure on it. I've been on the air 17 years, and I'm not going anywhere.
The Ani Judaism radio broadcast brought to you by your local radio affiliate as well as Apple Podcasts.
Okay. Shalom. Welcome, everybody. Hope everybody's being diligent and counting the Omer. We'll be heading into day 40 today if you're watching this as it is live on, what is today? Thursday. Then this is going out to our friends down there in South Florida on Shabbos. Many of you guys will catch it then. It's very good to be with each and every single one of you. I hope that everything is going well with your families. Hope everything is going well with you. Going well with your jobs, your schooling, whatever it is that you're doing. I hope all is well with you. We took last week off. You guys had a guest speaker last week, and I hope all of that went wonderfully. And today you're back with me. I'm sorry. No, it's good to be back with you guys. I ended up getting a couple of emails from many of you that there has been a discussion within the congregation about something known as Lunar Sabbatarianism. And we're going to touch upon Lunar Sabbatarianism, the issues with Lunar Sabbatarianism, and also, hopefully, give a little bit of conviction as well, because I know this path that leads a person down the Lunar Sabbatarian route, which also leads to other things as well that may not be so good within that of your walk with the Messiah. But first, we're going to go to one of the earliest parts of the Bible. We're going to go to Sefer Bereshis. Genesis. Aleph. Chapter 1. We're going to be going to verse 8. First of all, because we have to pay attention to the language here, whether in the Hebrew or whether in your translation. It says in there, Vayikra Elohim la rechia Shemaim Vahi Erev Vahi Voker Yom Sheni. Okay. In English, that would read, and God created the firmament as heaven. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. Okay? That's important. Because we see, even on the first day, we see days, but we see that he was able to go to a second day before something else was created. Okay? And so, if we drop down to verse 14, it says, Vayomer Elohim Yihi Me'orot Bekia HaShemayim V'havdel Bien Hayom Uvin Halela V'hayo Leotot Ul Moadim Ul Yamim Vi Shanim. In English it reads, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament for heavens to divide the day and the night, and let them be signs for seasons and for days, and for the years. Go on to verse 15. It says, Vihayo limorot berkia hashemayim lehaer al haaretz vihichen. And let them be lights in the firmament for the heavens to give light upon the earth. Okay, follow this here. Verse 16. Vaya'as Elohim et sheni ha-me'orot hagdolim et ha-maor hagadol li ha-menshelet hayom viet ha-maor ha-katon limem shelet ha-lela viet ha-chochavim. Okay? And God made two great lights, the large light to rule the day, and the small light to rule the night. And he made the stars. Okay? So, when we see this here, the thing that we notice is that before the moon was created, before the sun was created, we have God already going and counting the days. Okay? Now, if lunar Sabbatarianism was a thing, when God came upon the seventh day, as it says in here, he would have had to have started over on the fifth day. The fifth day would have been number one all over again because of the fact that the moon had not yet been created. Now, when we go back to a verse that we looked at earlier, verse 14, many lunar Sabbatarians think that verse 14 validates lunar Sabbatarian, but in all honesty, it does the exact opposite. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament in the heaven, divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. The thing with this is that we find the word within here that is not really within that of most English translations. It says ul moedim, okay? Then it goes on ul yamim vi shanim, okay? It gives this phrase here. When we look at ul moedim, it's talking about for the appointed times, for the festivals. Many people say feasts. Feast is not how you translate Moedim. Okay, you don't go and eat during Yom Kippur or for that of Tish B'Av. Both are Moedim, but they're not feasts. I always it's like nails going against the chalkboard when I hear people go and say, "Well, Moedim means feasts." And no, quite a few Moedim are actually the opposite of feasts. It'd be for festivals and for appointed times and for Yontif, essentially. Well, in many cases, it's for Yontif. Not all cases, but the thing that we have to understand here is that, first of all, it doesn't say that there would be phases of the sun, of the moon, or of the stars. That these aren't phases that determine your days. Okay, it's not saying that, that well, it's not a day, if the moon is full for, it doesn't say anything like that whatsoever. And this is where they totally mess up in thinking that's what it means, that it's talking about phases of the moon and all these other things. In terms of the stars, we can't have phases because there are certain things that happen during the constellation cycle, during certain Moedim, such as Pesach, and, several others, during the time of Hanukkah, we end up seeing, certain things going on with the stars that we kind of read about in the story of Yeshua HaNotzri being born. So we do see some stuff there. But nowhere in the scripture do we see this idea predicated upon that days are determined by phases of the moon. The one instance that we have is in the book of Yeshayahu, but it's in relation to that of Yom Kippur. Now, with this, the thing that we have to understand here is that it's not talking about the Shabbos there. It's not talking about that within Yeshayahu. It's not talking about the Shabbos there. It's talking about Yom Kippur. And so we have to understand the Jewish calendar. Hopefully, many of you are using the Jewish calendar. You're not using, some goofy calendar like the Kyrite calendar or, many of the other 5,000 that are out there and all that stuff. We have a commandment within that of Leviticus 23, which happens to be the chapter on Moedim, that says you will have a holy convocation. Well, if you're propagating a calendar that is not put together by the Sanhedrin, but rather a calendar that you think you figured out in Michigan and are counting the days in Michigan differently from the Israeli calendar. And if you are going and saying, well, the Moedim is not really on this day when all the Jews are doing it. Oh, golly. Chashvi shalom, God forbid. It's all stuyot is what all that is. It's all stuyot if you're going out there and doing that. Now, with the Jewish calendar, the thing we have to understand is that there are phases of the moon. But we also see the phases of the moon with the Jewish calendar for months. We know that there's a certain cycle in which it goes through. And we see that our calendar is correct because we end up going to Revelation chapter 12. And there it says that 3.5 years is 1,360 days. The funny thing that I always end up seeing with all these other calendars, such as the Kyrite calendar and all these other things that are like, oh, no. The great barley hunt is the marker, not an indicator, but a marker, the barley's ripe and all that stuff. And it's crazy because, if there's nobody in the land of Israel, then, I guess, we don't go into the month of Nisan, and there have been many years, thousands of years, where we were not even in the land of Israel. But, the barley could be ripe in, say, Australia, the United States. Hey, the Israelis were, in Mitzrayim. But, the seasons are different in Mitzrayim than they are anywhere else. The seasons are different in Israel than they are anywhere else. The seasons are different in the United States than they are everywhere else. So does every single continent and every single country have their own calendar based upon biblical precepts? Oh, gosh. See, now you're just getting into goofiness if you think that. But also, we see that 1,260 days for 3.5 years is on a set 360-day calendar. Okay? And so, when it comes to that particular calendar, we also have leap years, for instance. And we can kind of pinpoint, be given an indication of this because we see a leap year is not within that 3.5 years for it to be 1,260 days. I think that gives us a little bit of a window to kind of understand where it is that we might possibly be at some point when we start to see certain things happening and all that stuff. And that's a good little indication to have. But, let's say that you are going out on the great barley hunt. You've gone and done the Kyrite calendar or some of the others that are out there, and you're going on the great barley hunt and all that stuff. Well, what if the barley fields got burnt up? Say there was a war. The barley fields, it doesn't even tell you where to go and check the barley. It doesn't say to go and check it in Jerusalem. It doesn't say to check it in Mitzrayim. It doesn't say to check it, in Calcutta. Doesn't say where to do it, but we would say that the center of Jewish life is Jerusalem. Okay, so let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it's in Jerusalem, even though the children of Israel were not in Jerusalem when the mitzvos was given. So I guess that for 40 years there wasn't any years counted. But also, where in Jerusalem? Okay, well, let's just say anywhere in Jerusalem. Let's go and spread the net wide. Let's say anywhere in Jerusalem. Or let's just say anywhere in Israel. Anywhere. What if, Israel's constantly under attack, right? Let's see, during these times, there's been several times in history where the barley fields, when the barley is a major export of Israel, have been totally burnt up. So then what happens with the leap years? What happens with the second month of Adar? Does the month of Adar then start turning into bad horror movie sequels? Adar 2, it's back. We have a second Adar every 7 years, but Adar 2, it's back. Adar 3, the beginning. Adar 4, the revenge. And we just kind of keep going through that until the barley decides to come back up. That's why it is that these goofy calendars don't make sense. We see that the Sanhedrin is given authority over that of the calendar. But the thing you'll notice is with Lunar Sabbatarians, they have to go against the entire settled calendar, the calendar of Hillel II, that nothing there is correct. The days are going to start at different phases of the moon. Sometimes it's a full moon, sometimes it's no moon, sometimes it's a sliver, sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that, sometimes it's a half moon. They all have different ideas as to what this is. Is it possible that the calendar is inaccurate in terms of the months? Yes, that is possible. But the thing that we have to realize at the same time is that nobody else is given the authority outside of the Sanhedrin to set the calendar. Do we have a Sanhedrin now? Oh, the conspiracy theorists think that we have one going and passing laws and doing sacrifices and all that stuff right now. But the fact is we do not. Okay? We have not had a Sanhedrin since 70 AD. We have always had a Sanhedrin in waiting, in case the temple is rebuilt. But a Sanhedrin cannot rule. A Sanhedrin cannot try, different halakha or anything until the third temple is built. So if the temple's not built, then you don't have a Sanhedrin. Okay. You see a lot of the goofy stuff out there. But the thing you'll notice, the Lunar Sabbatarians, which, we basically showed, here through God's own counting in Genesis 1, that Lunar Sabbatarianism was not a part of the bag. Otherwise, God would be severely contradicting himself, and the 7 days of creation would have been around, let's see, what had that been? It had been about 11 days. Okay, 11 or 12 days. It had been one of the two. Because after the fourth day, when the moon was created, they have to start all over. But there is a mentality that gets into things such as Lunar Sabbatarianism. And these are going to be some things that I'm sure that if you're one of these people, that you yourself have can kind of see within yourself for the reason of correction. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about. I understand that many people start out in this walk in Torah and Messiah with the mentality and this talking point. We have been lied to. We've been lied to. And because of that being the main talking point, which is actually in many ways a marketing ploy. It's a marketing ploy for a lot of the weirdness out there. Can't trust anything. can't trust your family. You can't trust anybody in your former religious institution or anybody's there. That's why you hear a lot of people going and getting into, the Christians are pagans and all this stuff because they do this, they do that, they do the other, so therefore they're pagans. I was a part of this group at the very start of my walk. I did not have good guidance. I did not start out as a B'nai Noach. This was probably about 16 years ago. Did not start out as a B'nai Noach. Did not have the responsible leadership to help guide me. I scoured the internet for all things Torah and Messiah. And the most popular teachers that were around at the time were not individuals that had ever been to yeshiva. Many of them didn't even know what a yeshiva was. Some of them former baseball players saying, because I was a former baseball player and a pastor, I am now a Torah teacher. That's not the way it works. I thought it was. I was doing very well in political radio, got to do some fill-in spots over at Sirius and XM. And while I was there and all that stuff, I kind of, got really serious about my faith, got really serious about the Torah. And I was, one of those guys that were like where many of you either are or have come from and have decided to call your former religious institution pagans and all this other stuff and really go and exaggerate many of the things that, Christians believe. It's a kind of a black or white kind of thing. And when a person matures out of that, they find out how dishonest that is. Always speaking in absolutes. If you know of somebody who was always speaking in absolutes, that is a big red flag. Okay? Anybody that goes and tells you to stray away from Christians, from Christianity, the scholarship in Christianity. Hey, I'm a rabbinic Jew, okay? I'm in my 4th year of studying Kabbalah, for goodness sake, okay? Many of these people would say that I, as well, am a pagan, okay? Because I study the mitzvos, fulfill mitzvos through the way of halakha. I find great things to be written by our sages. I don't try and pick and choose the route I want to go because I realize that the sages and the judges of the Talmud much smarter than me. Much smarter than me. A guy who's been, I've been in this walk, for about 17 years or 16 years. About 16 years I've been in this walk. And being in this walk for 16 years, many people will say, well, that's a really long time. But let me tell you something. The guys in the Talmud, our sages, these were guys that were in their 60s, that had grown up within Judaism since birth, knew the scriptures better than any of us ever will. These were like the biblical superheroes in terms of understanding and analysis of the scriptures. It's funny because in today's time, a person can get a following on social media, they can get a following on television, they can get a following on YouTube, and because the fact that you see those numbers going up, the person has, 100 subscribers. The next week they have 200. Now they got 30,000. They must know what they're talking about. It's kind of a psychological thing. In many ways, what it really is how well you're able to sell yourself. I remember being told that this walk is like a game. Christopher, you got to learn how to play the game. And there's this mentality saying that, and it's kind of a psychological thing that says, only listen to me, only listen to people like me. The thing I will tell you, however, that should break many people away from that is, first of all, to surround yourself with many individuals who don't necessarily agree. Why? Because you're going to learn the most from them. Don't put yourself on a lofty mandraga. Don't ever do that. Rashi ended up saying, one of the great sages of old, Rashi, ended up saying that he learned the most not from his years of study of Torah, not from his many years of studying Talmud, Halakha, but rather from the conversations he would have with his students. That's where he learned the most. I would actually say that, considering that I teach an ordination class in non-Judaism, that I understand what it is that Rashi was saying. But when you veer off into this path, you don't want to look at the sages. You don't want to look at the Talmud. You don't care what the Rambam says, or what is prescribed at Halakha, through that of the Sanhedrin, which God Himself said to listen to what the Sanhedrin says and rules on and do it, or the penalty of death. I kind of think that God meant business when He said that, personally. I don't think He was just saying, just kidding. Okay? When Yeshua says, learn and do as the Pharisees say, I don't think He was just kidding. I don't think He was trying to just let words fill in there. I think that every verse of the Scripture is holy and sacred. That's me. And so the thing is that the ego at times, and this straw man mentality, this them versus us kind of thing, will cause us to get into the weird. Okay? And you'll have people, and this may even be you, and if it is, please listen to what it is that I'm saying, and hopefully this will be helpful to you, and you don't feel like I'm attacking you or anything. But if you think that you're giving a new way to interpret things that have been done for thousands of years by people much smarter than us, people who, many who take this don't know a lick of Hebrew. It's always funny because they think that they know more about the Bible than those who read it in the native language of the biblical manuscripts. That is just so bizarre to me. Just so amazingly bizarre. But this route causes a person to take the route of being totally and utterly controlled by Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara, you will know a person is overtaken with Yetzer Hara through a couple of ways. First of all, they always want to argue. They are looking for an argument. Rabbeinu Bachya, one of the great sages of old, 11th century, said that the Yetzer Hara has its hold on you when you want to argue with your brothers and sisters over minute and minor things. When you get satisfaction in arguing or in feeling that you are superior to them, and which, it reminds me of the scripture when Yeshua goes and says that if you want to be first in the Olam Haba, you must be Obed. You got to be a humble servant if it is that you want to be first in the kingdom of heaven. Don't be this guy saying, "Hey, look at my kippah, look at my talit katan here, look at my talit gadol, and that was a very expensive talit gadol there." When a person, gets into that mind of, look at me, look at me, look at me, it's not really about religious service. Instead, it's about a perception of yourself, a feeding of the ego. I always wear my talikatan. I always wear that. Always wear a kippah. And the thing is that there is other Hasidic dress. Yeah, for instance, the hat over there and all that stuff, is one of the things we wear in Hasidim. Also the big coat and all that stuff. If I wanted to, you know, bring attention to myself, then what I would do, go and grab all that garb, put it on, for these teachings and all that stuff, put on this perception of, what, I'm going to prove to you I am who I am by going and doing all of that. If I ended up going and doing that, then that would have been nothing but ego. Well, look at me. I got the hat. Oh, look at me. I got the shittel. I got the, I got this. I got that, and all this stuff. And I didn't have the props, all along the desk and behind me. I'd go and put all of my books right behind me here instead of a green screen. I'd have everything just so that I'm the real deal. You've probably seen people do that. And a lot of the times these props are used to convince people psychologically. A lot of this stuff is psychological. Okay? And so therefore, you have an egotist that is training other egotists. What does this have to do with Lunar Shabbos? I'm getting to that. Who's teaching you to put yourself above that of your Christian brethren. Here's a word to the wise for those who do that. Those who do that, chances are only fulfilling maybe 4 more mitzvos, more than their Christian brethren. If they believe that their Christian brethren are going to Gehenna, and they're going to have a lofty place in the Olam Haba, but yet at the same time, they don't fulfill the 2 most important mitzvahs of loving Hashem with all your mind, heart, soul, love, and strength, loving your neighbor as yourself. You want to know what love is? Go and look at what Paul had written in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7. Many people try and redefine it, saying, oh, no, because of the fact that I'm a jerk to this person, it means I love them. I'm giving them truth. Yeah. With the ego, there's an absence of love. Whether it's love for your wife, whether it's love for your brothers and sisters, love of God's people, there's an absence of that. And so a person is trained to go against anything that has been taught before by scholars. Oh, the scholars, you can't trust them. People have studied the Bible their entire life. They're a part of some hidden agenda. Oh, the sages. Oh, well, they were just pagans. Those Jews were just... Yeah, this is where a lot of the anti-Semitism comes. And when you get that seed of anti-Semitism by saying, I'm not going to listen to the Sanhedrin, though it says, God says, you better do it. But you say, I'm not going to do that. I'm too important for that. I know better than they do. Again, your Yetzirah has overtaken you at this point. The inner Satan has overtaken your entire being at this point. And when you say, and when you do that, you were looking for anything that goes against what you've been taught before. You don't weigh out the evidence. And so you get Lunar Sabbatarianism, Flat Earth, sacred name movement, aliens being in the Bible, you get into the conspiracy theory stuff, and all that stuff. You get into all that because of the fact that if it's different and everything you've been taught before is wrong from your perception, then anything that is outside of the norm in terms of scholarship or the way that us Jews have been doing things for 5,000 years, you feel through your own importance that it's your job to go and say, oh, yeah, I'm here to correct all of you now. Okay, can you read this verse to us in Hebrew? No, but I'm going to correct you. And everything you ever done. God's name is Yabba Dabba Doo. And the Messiah's name is Scrappy Doo. If you don't refer to God as Yabba Dabba Doo, don't refer to the Messiah as Scrappy Doo, then you don't know his name and you don't know him. Yes, I've actually been in many conversations with individuals like this, and it's possible that I myself was one of these people 16 years ago. So we constantly have to look at the ego. One of the things with me is that I'm getting married soon. And it's interesting because when I read Rabbi Shalom Arush and Gan Eden, or Gan Shalom, rather, his book Gan Shalom, The Garden of Peace, it's interesting because one of the things that a man must do to have a successful marriage is, first of all, to do exactly what it is that Yeshua had said, which is that if you want to be first, you have to put yourself last. There's times when Amy has to give me correction. She has to look at me and say, this is what I want you to do. She does it in the sweetest way possible, of course. And she didn't know that I realize this correction, but, she goes and gives it to me. And the thing about it, though, is that if a person is ruled by their Yetzer Hara, they're going to say, nope, wife's an idiot, nope, and all that stuff. And you see that a lot within that group that, believe the earth's flat, lunar Sabbatarian, just anything that's outside of the norm. Anything different than what it is that we've been doing for 5,000 years. You see a lot of that. You have this mentality that, men, think that they're supposed to rule their wife with an iron fist. I'm king of the castle, lord of the manor. They're kind of like Jackie Gleason in The Honeymooners, But sadly, many of the wives are not like Audrey Meadows in The Honeymooners. Audrey Meadows was tough. She really was. When Ralph would go and do something stupid and thinking he's all big and bad, she would end up telling him he was a big, dumb dope. And Ralph in that show, probably my favorite show of all time, he needed that. And there's a little bit of truth in that because us men need that at times. And so when Yeshua says that if you want to be first in the kingdom, you got to put yourself last, we have, you have your marriage as something that, for us men, us, going and realizing that the wife is the tzaddik of the home, and realizing that, I'm telling you, that really hurts the ego a lot of the times if we are ruled by our ego. But in Judaism, we realize that's just the natural order of things. It's our job to be a servant. In fact, that's why it is that we wear this. People often ask me, what is it that this represents? Well, it represents kingship. So when I put it on and I say, hey, a big macher is what I am, No, kingship is much different in Judaism. Much different. It's kind of the opposite of how we see kingship in the Western world in today's time. In today's time, we see kingship as, kind of like Jackie Gleason, king of the castle, lord of the manor, that kind of mentality. I'm going to rule over you peasants. But in Judaism, the king is to be a servant to the people. He's to serve them. And in many ways, the way that the United States was founded, through elected representatives being public servants, was predicated upon that old biblical concept. But now, oh no, They are not public servants. They see us, the people, as being peasants. You see that happening on the news right now, as a matter of fact. The people in Maricopa County are saying, we need a recount. Shut up, peasant. That's, and you see how it is that our nation is being destroyed through that very same egotism. Now, our job is to realize, first of all, we've started out in our walk, we think we got it all figured out. Oh, yeah, I'm going to do a variation of kashrut. Oh, I'm going to, do whatever kind of thing I call Shabbos. I'm going to do Shabbos. I'm going to do it any way that I want to. And we think that we're high and mighty. And yet we're defiling those mitzvahs by acting in that manner, by acting in this high and mighty manner. And then we are destroying the relationships that we have with people around us. We're destroying relationships with the very people in our very home. But the person with the servant heart will instead say and realize in due time, man, I thought I knew a lot. Actually, I hardly know anything at all. I know I say this often, but it's true. The more I study each and every single day, the more I read, the more I pray, the more I go through my walk, the more I realize the less I know. I thought when I started out, I had it all figured out. And I realized that if you were to count all of the hairs on my head and face and body and all that stuff, and then divided that by, a billion, that little divided by a billion would be the percentage of how much it is that I actually know. People come to me. I get emails from you guys all the time, because of the fact that I'm a rabbi, and you say that, you should have it all figured out. The thing I tell my students all the time is these 3 words: I don't know. I don't know. Many times you'll have the egotist go and make up things on the spot and say, oh, well, let me tell you what it is that I know. They always got an answer. The egotist always has an answer. Sometimes we need to surround ourselves not with the people who think they have the answers, but rather those who say, I don't know. Because those are going to be the people that craft your life, that help you to craft your walk in Torah and Messiah. And they are going to give you the honesty and the shalom that you need. It's going to protrude from them. And it's going to become a part of you. Those are the most important qualities to have in terms of learning and applying mitzvos. We're a peculiar people anyway. The scripture tells us that. We don't need to go out of our way to be weird. Okay? That's what you see with Lunar Sabbatarianism. That's what it is that you see with flat earthism, sacred name movement, and all that stuff. It's just a way to be weird, a way to be different, because if it's different, then it's right, is the way the mentality should be. Instead, we shouldn't have that mentality at all, in any way, shape, or form. It should never be a them versus us. The Guf HaMashiach, I will tell you, it's not just made up of Ani Jews. There's some Messianics in there as well. Really good ones. Not necessarily the ones that have, studied the Torah, for 40 years and all that stuff. The children. The children understand this. That's why Yeshua said, let the children come to me. It's their mindset that we must have. There's going to be many Christians in the Olam Haba. Yes, that is very true. For the Olam Haba is not predicated upon them fulfilling mitzvahs. Okay? There's going to be many Catholics. Yes, I said it. In the Olam Haba. The Olam Haba is not made up of just solely, you will have this doctrine. That's not the way the Olam Haba works. For the Guf HaMashiach has people working in many different parts of the body of Messiah. Not just within Judaism, but within Christianity as well. There's things that our Christian brethren fulfill so much better than us. Stop with this them versus us. Because if you have this them versus us mentality, I talked earlier about how it is that it's not just against them. It's against our people as well. When you have the them versus us mentality, it translates into anti-Semitism because you say, then the real Jews aren't the real Jews. That's why you get the black Hebrew Israelites. You get those who say the Ashkenazi, and say all this anti-Semitic stuff, that Hitler was right and all this stuff. You've seen people say this. Many big name leaders have said this, that are part of this is why the Christians are wrong. And it's this them versus us kind of thing. They then later get into Hitler was doing a good thing. He was getting rid of the wrong Jews. Anti-Semitism creeps up into this mindset. And then because of the fact that they're looking for the weird, they adopt the ideas, the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. A Russian forgery that was used as propaganda by the Nazis that had all these ludicrous claims about the Jews, had all these ludicrous claims that we were out there going and drinking the blood of Gentile children and using it in our matzah. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. And this is a lie that has been predicated ever since the Middle Ages, during the time of the Spanish Inquisition. These were things that were being said. These were things that were being said about the Jewish people in the times of Prague, during the time of the Maharal, Rabbi Loyal. That's why it is that he built the golem. Whether he's right or wrong on building the golem, I think he was a little bit off the derech, if you ask me, when he went and built that thing. But this is why it is that he did it, because of anti-Semitism. And the thing is that when our theology starts to come more from something that starts with a www dot and not the scripture, not the words of the sages, not the words of our Melech Mashiach, Yeshua HaNotzri. Our theology is instead saying, okay, all supreme being www dot. Let's see what kind of weirdness I can find today. Many will say, Lord, Lord, I did this in your name. I did that in your name. Yeshua says, depart from me. I do not know you. Think on this. Thank you for joining me here today. I hope all of you, if you're catching this on Wednesday, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Keep on counting the Omer. Tonight will be day 40 here in just probably about an hour or so. Sun looks like it's getting ready to go down here, maybe about an hour here in North Kakalaki. So we'll be going into day 40 of the Omer. And in case I don't see you guys until Shabbos, I'm going to say Shalom Bracha, peace and a blessing. And when the real Shabbos happens, Friday at sundown till Saturday at sundown, like it is every week, I'm going to wish you a good Shabbos as well. All right. Shalom bracha. Peace and a blessing.